Hello everyone and welcome to another round of Championship predictions. We've got the FA Cup alongside us this weekend, so we've lost a couple of games and they're involving, obviously the FA Cup is involving Leicester City and Coventry City. That means their opponents, Southampton and Hull respectively, are also out of action this weekend. So we've lost two fixtures, but we have 10 to run through and they're all on Saturday bar one, which is on Sunday lunchtime. So we'll start with the Saturday games, and the first one is the local derby in Wales, South Wales, Swansea City versus Cardiff City. This is always a feisty affair, whichever venue it's played at, as you can imagine. Cardiff on a bit of a roll at the moment. They've just picked their form up and won 4 on the bounce now. Maybe a little bit too late to make a real impression on that 6th spot. But 5 points in it, but still several teams between them and that playoff spot. But they had a good win last week over Ipswich, albeit a very dramatic and late win. Ipswich scored first, and I must admit I fell into the trap of thinking that Ipswich would go on and take the points. But 2 stoppage time goals by Cardiff in 90+5 and 90+10, I think they were timed at. Gave Cardiff, for me anyway, in the end, a surprise win. But a very good one nonetheless, and it carried on their excellent run of late. 4 wins and a draw in their last 5. So they're going down to Swansea, the bitter local rivals, in good heart. Swansea lost away at Bristol City last week, so they'll be disappointed with that because Bristol City were on a poor run up until that point, and so they would surely have wanted at least a point, if not more, from that match. But they came unstuck, losing 1-0. So I think this will be a very tight affair and a real feisty affair, as always, I'm sure. But I think Cardiff, in their current form, will just come out on top. And I'm going to take Cardiff to take the points, with the score being Swansea City 1, Cardiff City 2. Then we have Birmingham City and Watford, and Birmingham now just 1 point, or still 1 point above the relegation places after a really important, vital loss last week, if you see what I mean, to Millwall, who are now pulled away a little bit from the real bottom reaches of the table. And Birmingham just can't seem to get going at all at the moment. 4 losses and a draw in their last 5. And they're home to Watford, who themselves having a bit of an up and down time. Lost 2-1 to Coventry last time out, but pretty safe in mid-table. One of those sort of safe groundish teams, 45 points. So I think Birmingham really have got to pull something out here on Saturday. And I think they'll just probably be a scrappy match. Quite a lot at stake, certainly for Birmingham, with no form to speak of. So I think I'm going to take Birmingham just to take it by a 1-0. As I say, scrappy affair, not many goals about. Birmingham City 1, Watford 0 in that one. Then we come to Ipswich versus Sheffield Wednesday, and Ipswich must be still wondering, 4 or 5 days on, nearly a week on now, from when they how they lost to Cardiff last week. Nonetheless, their coach afterwards was quite philosophical about it all. That's football. They've had some late winners themselves, not least in the match before against Bristol City. So that's the way it is. That's why we watch and watch each week with no prediction of who's going to take the points in any match, really, with any confidence. So Ipswich, I think, will bounce back. Sheffield Wednesday will be disappointed that they've lost a couple now. Well, they lost their last game, rather, after winning 4. But it was at home to Leeds. And they gave a pretty good count of themselves, but Leeds were just too strong on the night. So I think Ipswich will recover from that last week. They'll see that as a blip after getting really back on track with a series of wins. So I'm going to take Ipswich to run out winners here. Ipswich Town 3, Sheffield Wednesday 1. And then we have Middlesbrough versus Blackburn Rovers. Middlesbrough have just sort of woken up from a bit of a slumber of late. 3 wins on the trot after a really poor run. And picking up, to me, not a surprised win at QPR, but I just thought QPR really with so much at stake for them would have taken something from the game if not the win. However, Middlesbrough went down and ran out 2-0 winners. So I think they will continue that little recovery sequence they've got themselves on. As I say, winning their last 3 at home to Blackburn, who again are just hovering above the zone. They've got a series of draws, are just keeping their head above water. 4 draws in 5, no wins around recently, and I think that'll still be the case come the end of the game on Saturday. I'm going to take Middlesbrough to sneak this one by 2-1. So Middlesbrough 2, Blackburn 1 in that one. Next we have Plymouth versus Preston North End. Plymouth Argyle versus Preston North End. Preston surprised me last week. They were going on such a good run of late, or a much improved run of late. And I didn't expect them to lose at home to Stoke, but Stoke, realising their peril, of sort of had to do something pretty quick. So they came away winners last week at Preston. So it was quite impressive stuff. Plymouth got a decent draw at Blackburn, given Plymouth's away form hasn't been that great throughout the season. They're back on home soil now, though, against Preston. Preston, I think, will give them a tough old match. Preston just about clinging to the playoffs on the horizon. They're chasing after. So they'll give it their all, as all the teams do, really, don't they? So I think they'll go down and sneak a point. It'll be a useful point for Plymouth as well in their quest to stay above that line. So I'm going to take Plymouth Argyle 1, Preston North End 1. Next up we have Rotherham United versus Huddersfield Town, and I think unfortunately now the season can't end quick enough for Rotherham. They've had 2, after showing some sort of fighting games, or certainly playing some carefree football. They've suffered 2 back-to-back 5-0 losses on the road, which is really unfortunate for them. So, yeah, they're 20 points now behind the 4th place team. So it's all but up by the mathematics that they will be playing League One football again next season. And Huddersfield came up against an in-form West Bromwich Albion, who are still picking up points very steadily indeed. And I was a bit surprised by the ease of which West Brom went to Huddersfield and won. But 4-1 it was. So Huddersfield want to get that back pretty quick. They're in the relegation spot at the moment, by a point, the 3rd spot. So here's a chance to go to a bit of a crestfallen Rotherham after 2 really heavy defeats on the road. I can't see anything else other than a Huddersfield win. It won't be easy because it's it is a Yorkshire derby. So I think Huddersfield will go there, get the 3 points they need. They really can't afford to slip up. So it'll be Rotherham 1, Huddersfield 2. Next, still on Saturday, we have Stoke City versus Norwich City. And Norwich, as I say, were one of the teams that benefited from playing Rotherham at the right time, I guess, and putting 5 past them last weekend. And Stoke had that very impressive win at Preston North End. I was impressed with that after the sort of troubles they had in recent weeks, to go to a decent side in decent form and put it off. It is what the Championship's all about, as I say. It's why we pick up each week and have no idea really what's going to happen, which is the beauty of this league. So we have Stoke and Norwich. However, Norwich just about owning the 6th place at the moment now. They finally got across the line. They're on the same points as Hull, who don't play. So even though that means they're going to play a game more, I'm always a fan of being able to play when your nearest opponents are, or nearest rivals aren't. So they'll pull away if they can win with a 3-point gap, and that suddenly puts the pressure on Hull to have to win their next match almost to stay in touch, or to stay alongside them, if you see what I mean. So I always think when my team's playing, and no one else is, all other teams aren't. It's a great chance when you're vying for the same prize as they are. So I think that Norwich will, even though Stoke had an improved result and performance last week, I think Norwich will follow up their comfortable win last Saturday with another win away from home, a couple of goals, Stoke City 0, Norwich City 2. And we then move on to Sunderland and Queen's Park Rangers. Sunderland, 6 defeats on the trot now, and they're just thankful for the points at the moment anyway, for the points they gained in the first half of the season. As I said, they're on their third manager, so they've had a really sort of traumatic season in some ways, but they're still in the top half of the championship, so that shows how good a start they did have. And they're coming up against Queen's Park Rangers, who are just outside the relegation zone at the moment, one of that cluster of teams that are changing spots every week at the bottom. As I say, QPR surprised me last week by losing at home to Middlesbrough a little bit. And Sunderland, obviously another 6 goals in a match involving Southampton, lost 4-2 after battling back well from being 2-0 down. I watched a few highlights of that match, and they did well, and I think they got a bit overexcited, and when they got back to 2-2, instead of sort of taking stock, they kept going for the jugular. Probably not the tactic to play against Southampton, who've just got so many goals in them from all around the pitch. So it was a good one for Southampton, who don't play this weekend, as we said at the top, because of the FA Cup. So I'm going to take QPR or Sunderland rather, to stop their run of losses, and I think QPR will take a point from the match. So I'm going to say it's going to be Sunderland 1, Queen's Park Rangers 1 in that one. 2 matches to go then in the slightly shortened fixture list this weekend. Firstly, we have West Bromwich Albion against Bristol City. As already alluded to a little earlier, Bristol City managed to stop their run of losses. 4 on the trot it had been since they dethroned, if you like, Southampton from their long unbeaten run. So they were grateful for a close, tight 1-0 win over Swansea. And West Bromwich Albion steamrolled, surprisingly, as I said earlier, steamrolled Huddersfield a little bit by 4-1 on their own patch. And I don't think Bristol City will sort of derail West Brom's path in the top 6. West Bromwich Albion now 5 points clear of the 7th place team, so they're just keeping that gap. It seems every week they're just doing enough to keep that nice cushion that they've got. They can't catch the top 4, I don't think. 10 points is too much with so few games left. But they're doing well. They'll be in good spirits if they do get into the top, confirm their place in the top 6. And as I say, I don't think Bristol City are going to push their boundaries too far on Saturday. I think West Brom will run out comfortable winners. And I think it'll be West Bromwich Albion 3, Bristol City 0. So that's the Saturday games. And then we've got one on Sunday afternoon, and that's Leeds United versus Millwall. Leeds United they've had a good rest because they played Friday night last weekend and they don't play until Sunday, so they've had a decent break, a nice chance to refresh everything. And they're home to Millwall, who are having this sort of mini revival from looking really heading nosediving, but since they changed the manager, they haven't lost, I don't believe. 3 wins and a draw, and picked up more points under those 4 games than they did under their previous manager in the total 9 games he was in charge, I think I read. So Millwall obviously responded to the change of manager as well. However, I think Leeds will just be a step too far for that little mini revival, but who knows? But I'm going to go with the form book possibly here, and Leeds again a chance to remain. If Ipswich win on Saturday, then they'll need to win to leap back or jump back over Ipswich into 2nd place and pull a little bit further away from Southampton, as both teams will if they win, because Southampton don't play. And I know, living in the local area for the Southampton team, Football Club. They are frustrated by the stop-start nature of their fixture list at the moment, and the fire couldn't be helped, of course. That was totally out of their hands, and so is their opponents being in the FA Cup. So Southampton have a bit of a stop-start run, which doesn't seem to have bothered their results too much of late. They did have that little stumble a couple of weeks ago. They lost a couple. However, I think Leeds will show them their form. They just had that hiccup against Huddersfield. Otherwise, it's a streak of wins, which I think they will continue at home to Millwall on Sunday afternoon. It'll be Leeds United 2, Millwall 0. Okay, so that's the games this week, just the 10 of them, not the usual 12. I hope you all have a good footballing weekend. We've got the FA Cup to look forward to, we've got all the Championship games and League 1, League 2 and all of that. So yet another full-on footballing weekend for us all to look forward to, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.